Take it away, Phil.
Thank you, Ann. Can everybody see what I have up on the screen and hear me? Awesome. So, Ann, thanks to you and many familiar faces with NAM for allowing me to join you this afternoon and discuss what I am certain is everybody's favorite casual lunch topic, cybersecurity in a changing world. And we've got about 20 minutes. Brevity is not my strength, so you guys please feel free to raise your hand, scream through the Zoom call if I'm going over time, but I've tried to do my best to keep it at 20 minutes, leave some time for questions. I've got a little bit of a different approach to this presentation than maybe the traditional ones you've seen lately, in that we've got a couple of videos embedded in the PowerPoint that hopefully you'll be able to hear. Couple reasons. One, you don't have to listen and look at me the entire time, but more importantly, some of these cybersecurity topics, and you'll see what I mean in a few minutes, are just better told by a video than I could do even in the best of explanations. So you'll see that as we get going. Very, very, very briefly about American PCS. We are an IT services provider based in Council Bluffs. We've been around for 25 years. We provide a full scope of IT services, from fully managed, where we take over everything, to co-managed, where we work with an internal team, to some cybersecurity only services. We have 31 partners. We support 27 people and their devices, and we have found a niche in the nonprofit space. So 20 of our partners are nonprofits, Firefly, New Visions, Ignite Nebraska. We are very proud of those partnerships. So if you or anybody you know is ever looking for some different options, or maybe even just a one-off penetration test, which is basically the equivalent of a audit for your IT department and your cybersecurity posture, please reach out. That's my soapbox on American PCS. I'm going to jump into cybersecurity 101 with just a quick definition to make sure we're all on the same page. And I've got the clinical definition on the screen, but oftentimes I find it much easier to talk about cybersecurity in terms of what it isn't, because I think most of you, certainly I, can relate to some of these statements much better than a Webster dictionary or Google definition. We hear this a lot from our partners and from our prospects that, gosh, they've got cybersecurity handled because they have an IT department and they know that it's being handled, or they've engaged with an outside vendor for some firewalls and they're set up. One of the things that I want to take, if you don't take anything else from today's presentation, what I would hope you would take is that, yes, the breadth and depth and severity and sophistication of cyber attacks is increasing. It's increased since this presentation started 5 minutes ago, but it is only going to increase in some part due to artificial intelligence, which we'll talk about later. But the takeaway isn't that. The takeaway is that you can make a difference for you on a personal level and for your organization by doing some little things. The more you do, the more protected you are. But this is not a defenseless scenario. There are things that you can, and I would argue that you have to do in order to protect your personal and your nonprofit. If you don't, and please don't take this the wrong way, you will ultimately probably pay for that in a different way, in the form of a ransom or damages, insurance claim, lost reputation with having some personal protected information that's been breached, and have to notify your customers and the public. There is no shortage of local examples of those cyber attacks. For the handful of you who probably still read a daily newspaper, Lee Enterprises owns just about every newspaper in the state of Iowa and Nebraska, along with a couple other newspapers across the country. Several months ago, a cyber group called QLin deployed an attack. They had been in the Lee Enterprises environment, and by that I mean it used to be that cyber attackers would attack, immediately shut down. You'd get the dreaded blue screen, and then they would demand a ransom. They're much more sophisticated now. Their goal is to get into your environment, to live there for a while, to watch what typical actions and emails and calendar invites and payments to vendors might be. And that way they can have a much more sophisticated attack when they do deploy that attack. And in most cases, by they living in your environment that long, which is what happened to Lee Enterprises and the Omaha World Herald and the Daily Non-Pro, they can then attack your backups. We always tell our partners, you have to have strong backups because to some extent, it's not a question of if, but when you're going to be attacked. So you want to make sure you have strong backups. But if you're not protected on the front side and they're in there long enough, they're gonna most likely impact your backups as well. Lee Enterprises, in some cases, their papers, it impacted everything. Print paper, digital paper, billing, distribution, you name it. In some cases, some of their weeklies were down for months, not able to produce a paper. They didn't pay the ransom, which is what we would recommend not doing. But because of that, they had to rebuild every page from scratch. And then one that really hits home for me, because I have some young children who just graduated from high school, an employee in the Broken Bow finance office, business office, gets a link from an attacker who had probably lived in the environment for a while, knew what kind of an email would come from what kind of vendor and when that would typically come. They get that email and maybe they're in a hurry. They click on it. It takes them to a link that looks legitimate. They wire $1.8 million to that vendor. It was fraudulent payment. They've recouped 700,000. Many times I give this presentation and people ask, well, how come you can't recover it all? It's all traceable. Most of these transactions are now converted to cryptocurrency almost immediately. Cryptocurrency, as most of you probably know, is basically impossible to track. So very, very difficult. We've had some local examples, but again, we're going to talk about some things you can do. We're going to come up on the first video. This is called an adversary in the middle attack. And apologies for the abrupt end to the video. It's typically a two-part video. The first part is going to show you what happens on your screen in an adversary in the middle attack where they compromise your Office 365 account. And the takeaway is that they're able to infiltrate without you or me, in this case, John Fish, being able to ever understand that they're under attack. Once this ends, instead of the second video showing once they're into your Office 365 what they can do, we'll talk about that. But first, we're going to play the video.
The screen on the left is our victim's computer, and the screen on the right is our hacker's machine. The victim, John Fish, is using Microsoft Outlook Web and was created in our isolated Microsoft 365 lab. The hacker is using a common tool called EvilJinx Pro running on Kali Linux. John Fish received an email from a trusted source, Tom Client. Tom regularly sends John encrypted emails, so John clicked the link to open it. As soon as he clicked the link, you start to see activity on the hacker's computer. The link takes John to a standard Microsoft 365 login page. If it looks legitimate, it is because it is. This is a real Microsoft login page. The only difference is that it is going to the hacker's web server first before being forwarded to Microsoft. You can tell by looking at the address bar. Microsoft uses login.microsoft.com. In this example, the malicious server we created is login.microsoft.apcsfakemicrosoft.com. Anything other than login.microsoft.com could be an indicator of a fake site. It can be really easy to miss this clue, especially if you're in a hurry. Unsuspecting John enters his email address and password into the login page, and right away the hacker's computer captures his credentials. Then when John confirms his login on his Microsoft Authenticator app, the hacker has all they need. The login is successful and passed on to the real Microsoft login page, so John has no idea he let the hackers in. Since this was a genuine login, none of the standard security features would alert. Microsoft 365 risky user alerts would not be triggered, and his workstation's advanced EDR software has no idea. With John completely unaware he was hacked, the hackers have all the time they need to get to work. Before we move to the next part of the demo, there's one quick concept you need to understand. Authentication tokens. When you successfully log into a secure website, like your email, bank, or accounting system, that website gives your browser a sort of digital hall pass. It's called an authentication token. This token is a small file stored in your browser. It's what tells the website, yes, this person already logged in. They're allowed to be here. It's also the reason you don't have to re-enter your password every time you return to a site. As long as that token is still valid, the site trusts your device. Microsoft issued an authentication token cookie to John, and our hacker has stolen it. He enters a few commands into EvilJinx, and it displays the authentication token cookie. He then imports that cookie into his browser, and it lets him into John's Microsoft 365 account. From here, the hacker has access to John's Microsoft 365 account and everything in it.
So thanks for bearing with me. I know that's kind of a long video, but I think it's helpful. Again, I think the assumption is I'm going to be able to see, like a traditional burglar, them at work, when in fact, you might ask, gosh, how can I avoid that? Just a little bit of a slip of attention, not noticing that that was not the traditional Microsoft multi-factor authentication, which any of you who have Office 365 hopefully have set up. Like similar to the finance director at Broken Bow, potentially just in a hurry, didn't pay attention. And it's, like I said, a lot of times the little things. So what can they do once they have access to your 365 accounts? So just one scenario, they have access to all of your global address. So they know who your CFO is, CEO is, CHRO, all of your key personnel. They can look at all of your deleted and sent emails, which helps them then craft more sophisticated phishing emails. They also know they can look through your calendar and see who you might typically send a calendar invite. And so they might send, for example, I might say send Anne an email that she would not suspect anything because it would legitimately be from me or John Fished in this example. It might have a malicious attachment, but again, the attacker has been in the environment and has access to everything to be able to know and won't be suspecting anything because it will be legitimately from who she's used to getting an email from with an attachment and a calendar invite that she would not be surprised by. They'd also have access to your entire OneDrive and SharePoint, which most of us keep some pretty confidential information and files there. So what's lurking out there? Again, this has changed since this morning. I've listed a handful of those. One of them that makes me laugh and cry at the same time is the ransomware as a service. There is on the dark web, you can literally go and rent a hacker. You can pay as a percentage of what they are able to take as part of their hack, or you can pay a one-time fee. But there's ransomware as a service is becoming more and more, quote, popular. QR code scams. I know many of us use them for marketing. We don't oppose them on your website, but we do oppose them for any of our partners on any physical flyer. A lot of times the trend is the bad guys will put a sticker over that QR code. You scan it. They've then replicated your website to where it would typically go, and an unassuming consumer potentially wanting to donate actually donates, doesn't donate to your cause, donates somewhere else. The one I want to focus on here with the few minutes we have remaining is AI-driven phishing, specifically voice clones. There's also video clones, and you'll see what one of those in just a minute. AI, though, make no mistake, it is both a friend and a foe. On the friend side, it is helping us and our partners on the cybersecurity end develop solutions to predict what the attackers are going to do before they know they're going to do it. So it's been a huge help, and that will continue. It's been very effective to utilize AI with many of our cybersecurity tools like antivirus, endpoint detection and response, MDR. Really, all of those utilize it. On the bad end, it can be used to develop far more sophisticated. The days phishing campaigns, the days of me getting a Wells Fargo phishing scam email and them misspelling Wells Fargo. or having an incorrect logo, those are pretty much over. And that's largely driven by AI. I did want to share with you, since it is relevant to the nonprofit world, a voice clone. So I'm going to show you first an audio. It's intentionally poor quality because it is what was posted on the web. It's Kimberly Kilikowski. She's the executive director of Firefly here in Council Bluffs. She did an interview. It was posted to the Nonpareil. And first, I'm going to show you that video and then show you what can be done with even poor audio and video quality.
We serve families with lots of young children. And one thing that we know, especially this time of year,
Can't hear the video that well.
throw out of their shoes and clothes so fast. And
so I hope you can hear the next one. You were able to hear the previous one. This one was intentionally, we took it and put it into the PowerPoint the way that it was on the website. We did that because even with that poor quality, with about $30 piece of software and about an hour's worth of time, somebody so inclined to do so could replicate Kimberly almost to perfection. And those of you who know Kimberly will know how accurate this voice clone is. So let me know if you can't hear this one as well, but that one was taken basic Google search of Kimberly. It comes up with the Nonpareil website. You're able to see this. $30 and an hour later, you could produce this.
hello, everyone. This is not Kimberly Kolakowski, but I have her voice. With voice cloning, cyber criminals can mimic someone's voice almost perfectly. They might call your team pretending to be the CEO, a vendor, or even a colleague, tricking them into providing sensitive info or making a payment. I could even leave a voicemail for our HR manager asking for sensitive information and sound convincing enough to pass as her. Let me demonstrate. Hey, Leslie, happy Thursday. We received great news today that we were awarded a big grant, but we need to get them some information right away. They just need to verify the legal status of our entire staff. They need a report that has the name, address, date of birth, and social security number of everyone that has worked here for the last year. You should be able to pull the report from Sage Cloud. If not, they will accept copies of their I-9 forms. Because of the sensitive information in the report, we cannot email it directly. You will be getting an email from Tony from grantfunding.com with a link to a secure site to upload it. I am so excited. Please do this right away.
So again, you might look and say, gosh, my human resources, or I wouldn't fall for that if I got that call from my ED. Keep in mind, in many cases, the cyber attacker has lived in the environment. So they know that there's a potential. Maybe they've seen some emails back and forth that indicate that this could be a possibility. So the voice clone is just sort of the cherry on the top. And even if it isn't, again, you say, how could we prevent this? What would we tell our employees? Two things. We'll talk about the cyber smarts in a minute. Absolutely have security awareness training that sends fake phishing campaigns. You'd rather have an employee click on a fake one than click on a real one. If they click on a fake one, the vendors we use then require some training to hopefully they don't click on a fake or a real one. But most of this just comes down to taking a little bit of time. You get a request like this, just make an extra phone call or text or both to verify the authenticity of it. So what you probably are most interested in is, what can I do? You're hiding under the table, worried about an adversary in the middle attack. Maybe you're concerned that somebody, as we are sitting in on this meeting right now, is voice cloning you to your executive director or one of your staff members. Again, there are some things you can do. It is a numbers game for the attackers. They are going to deploy the most efficient methods. And if you've got the more line of defenses you have up, the more protected you are. This isn't a zero-sum game. You can absolutely do some things. It starts with strong passwords. Anybody want to quickly guess what the most popular password in Nebraska is? I'll tell you, you're not going to be surprised. It's Huskers123. If a hacker just guessed Huskers123, they'll hit just below 1% of every password in the state of Nebraska, giving them access to those. Use a password manager. Some people ask, gosh, what if they get the keys to the password manager? this is all about mitigating risk. And so there are no guarantees, but we feel confident in the security of the password manager and the sophistication of the passwords that they deploy, that it is on balance much better to use a password manager. I use 1Pass. We use Bitwarden here for our partners, but most of them I would vouch for. Don't send. I'm just going to point out a few of these. I think we've recorded this. We'll also share the PowerPoint. But don't share sensitive information over public Wi-Fi. And no, it's very convenient, but please don't share over public Wi-Fi. And then I know none of us like it, but the MFA is, in addition to security awareness training, having MFA, which requires a multi-factor authentication. So I open up my email and it's going to say, okay, it's going to send to probably a cell phone. Passkey is another one that you can use. Please have MFA enabled. It will, if somebody does get a password, it is one more layer of protection that says, I'm not trying to log on. Why is somebody trying to ping my phone for that? The cyber smarts at home obviously also work at work. They're just even more important because usually the exposure is greater. I will tell you that oftentimes a hacker's entry into a place of employment is through their personal. So they find out that Ann's password is Huskers123. I hope it's not Ann. But is Huskers123. They know that that's likely a password of hers at her place of employment. So that's what they're going to try right away. But at work, it's again even more important. And just a couple to point out here, I talked about the security awareness training, very inexpensive. It's depending on who you go with, Know Before, Breach Secure Now, $5 per employee per month. Biggest risk by far is an employee clicking on an email that they shouldn't. That security awareness training can send out some pretty sophisticated ones. Again, you hope if an employee clicks on a phishing email, it's one that's from one of your partners and not one from one of the bad guys. And then just to end, before we have some, open it up for some questions, hopefully, end of life dates, couple that are coming up. Office 2016, 2019 and Windows 10 are both coming end of life October 15th of this year. What does that mean? Microsoft will no longer deploy security patches for those. So you need to find out from your IT team or your IT provider if you have any Windows 10 machines. And if you do, if they're upgradable to Windows 11 and get those upgraded. It's a pretty easy process, but you don't want to be left with Windows 10. Some machines can't be upgraded and you'll want to replace those. Cyber insurance policies. Please check with your business manager. Maybe you have to have a specific cyber insurance policy. And it's so crucial that you have your IT department or even sometimes an independent IT provider help you fill it out. Insurance companies are much needed, and I'm certainly value them. But in part, the way they stay in business is by denying claims. And one way they'll deny claims is by unknowingly answering a question on a cyber insurance policy renewal. You thought you answered correctly, but the devil's in the details, and you have a cyber attack and you're not covered. And then develop and practice incident response plan, business continuity, disaster recovery. As I said, it's not necessarily if, it's when. You want to make sure you have backups. You certainly don't want to just ask your IT team, your IT provider, do we have backups? You want to, if possible, see proof what percentage is backed up, and then actually ask them to once a year do a restore from backup if that's possible. Sometimes it's not, but you want to make sure you go through those scenarios and practice your disaster recovery and business continuity. So I hope I didn't go too much over, but thanks for again inviting me here, and I hope you found that helpful.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting. Thanks, Phil. We appreciate you. I mean, this is such a timely topic, I think, for us all. And it feels like there's always a new, I should know the correct term after listening to you, but like a new phishing thing. I feel like most recently I've been getting a lot of fake DocuSign emails. Click on this and open it up. I know somebody, and I get these as well, but I think several people on this call may have gotten an alleged email from NAM saying, or from somebody saying, would you like the list of attendees for this conference? And we would never sell our list that way. Is there anything we can do like to stop that, or just educate and ignore?
Yeah, educate, and it's a good question. And that mostly, again, back to the security awareness training, that's part of that. Once your staff and you develop a culture of taking a second to take a double look, to verify a request like the one you heard from Kimberly, to do an annual penetration test with an independent IT company. There's many of them in Omaha, to see if to see where you're most vulnerable. Those are the things you can do. One that's relevant to this HR roundtable that I bring up that we've seen recently is a QR code email that looks legitimate. It looks like it's coming from the HR manager. And wow, how convenient. It's our new employee handbook via QR code. We have updated to 2025, and we are now providing our employee handbook electronically. Just scan on that QR code. Looks like it comes from the HR manager, just small details, looking at, hover over that email to see who it's really coming from. And in this case, it was from an attacker. They clicked on it. It was one of our partners, so we have alerting. They had one of our cybersecurity plans in place. We were able to get in and get the bad actor out within minutes. But if we hadn't, it would have been likely one of those where the attacker lurks in the environment for a while, and then plans an attack from there.
Other questions? You know, I know, and this is also, I think these types of things can be used to have a teachable moment. A number of years ago, a former NAMB employee, when they were at our office, got an alleged email from me saying, I need you to go buy as many like $100 Amazon gift cards as you can. And they fell for it. And luckily they didn't have a lot of money. And we said, well, with the police report, we'll reimburse you. But then that was also a good reminder to at least once or twice a year go through our financial internal control policies, because then you would know we would never process a request for payment of anything that way. So I would say if anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out to Phil. He's a business partner. You can get his contact information off that page on the NAM website. I agree, Tony. Interesting and terrifying.
As I said,
Well,
you can take some small steps. They make a huge difference. And thanks for your time. I would just add, you're right, that gift card one we still see.
oh, really? Okay.
Part of the AI ability is to know those that may have a cultural or language or both shortfall or shortcoming. So it might be an immigrant that is not as well versed on that. And we just saw that recently with somebody who's English second language. They saw it and they just were trying to do the right thing and purchased $1,000 worth of gift cards, sent the code, scratched off the back. So those are still happening. We're finding out, as again, the sophistication of the hackers is identifying who is likely to fall for that. And unfortunately, it sometimes is that community who might be new to our culture.
Well, good to know. You're welcome to stay